Good evening. This is Kay Aubrey Shemaine, and you've reached the weekly Always Shine Your Light Equine Energy Point Education Series webinars. I am the owner and director of Grand Adventures Ranch, a holistic equine wellness center in Sonoyta, Arizona. And tonight we're going to talk about the intestines run up the forelegs. Who knew? Kind of a different view of equine energy points for lameness, suppleness, and digestion. So we're going to start with the Jing points, right at the hoof. And if you'll look, this is a picture of looking down at the two front hooves of the horse. If you were to take your hands and overlay them where these hooves are, your forefingers would overlie right about where the large intestine point is. And your ring finger would overlay right about where the small intestine starts. And those are the beginning area points for the energetic meridians that correspond to the intestines in your horse's body. And those meridians run up their forelegs, or for you, run up your arm, and then up along the shoulders and neck. So we're going to go into those and cover those a little bit tonight. Here's a view of the two intestinal meridians energetically going up the body. In black, we have the large intestine. It starts, like I said, right there about where the forefinger is, comes up the leg, crosses the front of the knee, then runs up the front of the outside of the leg, front of the shoulder, along the neck, and down the jaw, and it ends along the nose. Similarly, the small intestine, which is in red because it's a fire meridian, runs up from where the pinky starts, up the back of the leg, along the back of the big bone. It tucks in there behind the elbow real quick, comes back out, runs up the shoulder and across the neck, and it ends right below the knee. So they both run from the hoof to the face. The large intestine meridian, as you can see, that flow, as we were saying, runs up the body. This is considered a yang meridian. Everything in energy has an equal and opposite, yin and yang, female and male. Yang is more external in the body. So the sister of the large intestine is the lung. It's more inside the body. Large intestine is more toward the outside. It's the yang. It's considered a metal element in that the large intestine is part of the strongest part of your immune system, the metal defense shield of the body. So it's a metal element. Its optimal time of energy flow is about 5 to 7 in the morning. And the functions, of course, of the large intestine as we know it: receiving food and water, reabsorbing fluids, so controlling the hydration of the body, controlling the skin, which is very tied to hydration. The more dehydrated we are, the more it affects the skin, and balancing qi and blood. Again, balancing the amount of fluid coming into the body and traveling through the body. We have two kinds of issues related to every meridian. We have functional issues, and then we have issues for which parts of the body that meridian travels over. So we're going to look at the functional ones first. Obviously, the large intestine is tied to respiratory conditions. I shouldn't say obviously. Its sister is the lung. Lung and large intestine, they control breathing, they control water balance, so heaves, coughing, excess mucus tied to water balance in the body, sensitivity to climate, excess sweating, or even not enough sweating, anhidrosis, skin problems, constipation, and diarrhea. Those are what we most think of when we think of the large intestine. A weak immune system and allergies. Many people wouldn't think about large intestine and allergies, but it's very tied. And then we have structural issues, and we'll talk a little bit more of this as we look at the path that these points, that the meridian travels over. But structural issues are common to the tooth and jaw, stiffness in the neck and shoulders, knee problems, lots of issues of the lateral forelimb, okay, the outside of the legs, and sense disorders. This is because it travels near the eyes and down to the nose. So once again, here are the points of our large intestine meridian. And you don't have to know all the points, but there are a few points that are very important to learn. Of course, where it starts, which would be about the same place, like I said, as your forefinger on the hoof. Then large intestine 4. Very important point, right below the knee, right there in the splint grooves. You're going to find splint grooves are very, very important. So large intestine 4 at the top of the splint groove is a master point for problems with the face and mouth. So you might not think it, but if you have toothaches, okay, sinus issues, infections of the eye, anything having to do with the face and mouth, that's an incredibly important point to treat. Use your lights, use acupressure, use massage, but open and balance that point. The next really important point to know is large intestine 11. This point's pretty easy to find. All you have to do is pick up the front leg, and your finger is going to fall into that groove right there where the joint is. Okay, that's large intestine 11. That is the tonification point for the large intestine meridian. So when you need to strengthen anything having to do with the functions of the large intestine, that's a really important point. And large intestine 15. This is in that divot right there at the front of the joint of the shoulder. Very, very common. Massage therapists recognize it. It gets sore very often. Those of us who are scanning horses in photopuncture, we see this point come up a lot, especially in horses who land hard on those front legs or have to twist. We see large intestine 15 come up a lot. And the other one that you should probably know is the association point for the large intestine, which is the point on the bladder meridian that corresponds to it, and it tucks right in there behind the hip. So there's your association point. Oh, I'm sorry. I blew it. I've got these slides out of order. I apologize. I'm sitting here going, no, that should be bladder 25. I've already jumped to the small intestine meridian. I apologize. It should be right in front of that hip bone, not right behind. So now we've gone from the large intestine to the small intestine. Notice this also runs up the leg, but it stays lateral. It starts right there where your ring finger would be, runs up the leg along the back side of those bones, tucks in behind the elbow, then comes up through the shoulder, above the top, up the neck, and it ends below the ear. Optimal energy flow for the small intestine is 1 to 3 p.m. to be also optimum time for the body to receive nutrient. If you're trying to help a horse that is very, very deficient in nutrient, the absolute optimum time for function of the small intestine is 1 to 3. That doesn't mean you don't feed him any other time. It's just optimal. So the functions of the small intestine, obviously receiving and transforming nutrients by absorbing food and drink, separating healthy nutrients from waste products before they move on to the liver, regulating the function of the intestines, and regulating body fluids before they make it all the way down to the large intestine. Primary issues related to meridian function are digestion and absorption. So horses with malabsorption are not getting their nutrition well, senior horses, horses that have been starved, horses that are just failing to thrive, think about the small intestine, okay? And also brain and nervous system disorders. We don't deal with that too much in horses, but it is an important function of the small intestine meridian. And then, of course, meridian path structural issues, same idea. We saw where that path went. Atrophy and swelling of the neck is a big one, and even more TMJ. That small intestine meridian ends right there at the TMJ point, and it's huge when we have issues relating to TMJ. That would also make sense in that they're not chewing well, so they may not be digesting and absorbing well because they're not chewing the food well. They may not want to chew. So structural issues, think about the path. So again, here's our small intestine meridian. Of the few important points on this meridian, we start with small intestine 3 right there at the back of the ankle. Okay. Small intestine 3 is a very important point for tendon issues. Also for shoulder and back pain, but specifically think about this point when you've got bowed tendons, strained tendons up the legs, any kind of tendon issues going on in the body. Right in there where the small intestine tucks back under behind the elbow. If you put your hand and cup the horse's elbow, your fingers are going to fall into a little divot right there where the joint is, right behind the elbow. And that point, that SI8, that's how you strengthen and tonify. It's a great point to massage or treat or balance for horses who are malnourished. All right, very important for helping to improve their absorption of nutrients. Anything to strengthen and balance the small intestine meridian. And our master point for shoulder and forelimb pain, SI9. Now, small intestine 9 falls right there in the middle of the shoulder. When a horse is standing square, if you just let your hand run over the soft part of the shoulder there behind the bones, you're going to, right in the middle, like halfway up, halfway back, you're going to find a divot. That's SI9. And it comes up so often in scanning. We see this all the time. If you don't learn any other point tonight, remember SI9. Horses will love you for it. So, how much of your health runs up the front legs? A lot, right? So next time you're thinking intestines, think of your horse's forelegs. Was that a little too fast? Did you want to know more? Come to our classes so that you really learn how to find them and remember them. I'm going to open it up now. Let's see. Okay, everybody. Oh, good, Sandy. I see you made it on. Sandy, you're still self-muted if you want to unmute yourself. Does anybody have any questions from tonight?
Well, I think right now I've got two horses with really bad diarrhea, and I know that I think both of them that I've scanned, where nothing else shows up. The small, if we went back to not the last picture, but the one, anyway, there's one point that shows up just, photo before that, right? Before that. No, it's...
Hold on. Sorry, there's a delay.
It wasn't SI9, it was before that. You lit it up. Where the heck would it go? Anyway, this is when like nothing else shows up. That point shows up all the time. It's in.
It's probably.
That's the one. Thank you.
Large intestine 11. You need to strengthen and balance the large intestine meridian. Okay, that's the tonification point for that meridian. What I normally do when I need to work with a horse that has a lot of diarrhea, this could be a really important point, especially if it's scanning and showing up. And come right in here. Also do, the bladder 25. I'll have like one light here and one light on bladder 25, just so that I'm bringing the energy back up to the spine. And then anytime I have diarrhea issues, anytime I have digestive issues, I come back here and I hit stomach 36, the probiotic point. So if you did nothing else for the diarrhea but those 3 points, you'd probably be doing a lot for that horse.
And you would just do setting 2 for 30 seconds, or you
I
do
start
more
with
than that?
setting 2 for 30 seconds, and then I go to 5 for 30 seconds to a minute. I might even do a whole minute.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions?
Yeah, I still really don't know how to access these after the session, these listen.
Are you getting the emails?
No. I'm getting emails that tell me about the meeting, but I'm not getting anything else.
Well, there's usually sometime in the next day to 3 days, there's an email going out that says, here's the links for the replay. And if you're getting the one, you should be getting the other. Everybody who's on the list is getting those second emails. But the other thing you can do is go to YouTube and search for Grand Adventures Ranch. And we're putting up both the full recording of the long, unedited, all of us talking, and also just the short recording of what I went through initially.
Right.
And those.
I'll look for those when we're done. But I had a kind of an interesting experience. A friend of mine came over and we scanned my thoroughbred. And I think I had the sensitivity turned up too high.
If you're getting a ton of points, that could be.
Yes, but the interesting thing was where these points were.
Okay.
And on the right side of the horse, they started at that L1 and went all the way up the front of the leg, the front of the shoulder, the front of the neck, all the way up to the head. It was like one long line, and when I am looking at these meridians that you're showing me, it's exactly where that large intestine meridian goes.
Yep.
Now I have too much reaction, I think, but I also think that that's what I'm looking at, because he has a cough, he has a lot of mucus.
So when that happens, a lot of times when I see an entire meridian that way that's out of balance, then we start doing what's called sister work. All right, we start doing the lung and the large intestine sisters so that we balance the two. All right, and sometimes you can do that just by doing the tonification points. Like you could tonify the lung and sedate the large intestine. If we had a lot of, if it was the other way, if we had a lot of coughing and and everything was really, really, really dry, then we would do it the other way around. We would support the large intestine, and we would sedate the lung. Okay, we go backwards. All right, but the lovely thing about having the photopuncture system is you don't really have to know which one is which. Just use 2 and 5 and really kind of balance both meridians. And that can be as simple, if you don't know anything else about let's say you don't remember that, a specific one is the tonification point or anything else like that, but you know that it starts here and it ends here, right? You can put one of your light diodes here on the foot and the other light diode on the nose on the same side, and you can just work. At that point I might do 1 3 5. I might do 2 5. Okay, and try to balance it that way, and then come over and you would do the sister meridian, which the lung is here and it ends up on the chest, and so you would do the large intestine and then you would do the lung. and because you'd be moving energy through both of them, that would help balance the two. Okay, that's kind of a simplified way of doing it, as opposed to knowing all the sedation and tonification points. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Sandy, I know you said you had some questions earlier today about feet. Was that the primary thing that you had, or was there something else?
Unfortunately, I had momentarily misplaced my cell phone, so I could not photograph where they were beeping. In other words, hello. So if it's in, I mean, they all beeped in the indentation, the well, but then they also beeped on the tuft.
Okay.
Sometimes, you know.
All right. So when you're talking the well, are you talking about back here? Right back here.
Climbing. I'm not talking about the bottom of the foot. I'm
No.
talking about.
And this is, think of this ring as the coronet band.
Got it.
Okay. And
yes,
this is.
Then I am thinking about that.
Right.
There.
This is the spot coming up. That would be in the front foot. It would be the pericardium point. Okay. In the back foot, it would be the kidney. But notice that we have 6 different points, and usually those little tufts that you're talking about come right. And these are not always perfectly 1/3 up. Every horse's foot is a different shape, but they correspond to about where our fingers are, and this one corresponds to the bulb of the palm of our hand. Okay, so most of the time when you're scanning and you have alert points show up right there along the coronet band or just up from it, they're going to correspond to these Jing points.
Well, okay. Nothing on the coronet has ever lit up thus far, but
okay.
Where the pericardium, like in that well, and then you see the tufts on either side of that well, like side. You see where your little pen is?
You mean like here? Or you're talking out here where the heel bulb is?
Yeah, like.
Okay.
Yeah, the heel bulb. So
okay.
Like, I'm always wondering, are these acupuncture points to do with, or does his shoes hurt? You know, or does he have a foot problem?
If I'm seeing it lit up all around this area, yeah. I'm going to think inflammation of the heel bulb.
Oh,
which in shod horses is very common.
Okay. But if it's only in the well, or it's only one spot somewhere on either one of those 2 heel tufts or in the well,
then it's probably, if it's only one spot, it's probably an energy point. They're not always perfectly centered, and they're not always the same in every horse.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's where the little single point of your scanner wand comes in handy. If you're trying to figure out exactly where something is, sometimes you can just turn and use that end so that you're using the single point.
So it's pericardium in the well, but is it also like where your pen is? Also on the top, there's just
it technically should be pretty much centered, but I've seen it off by as much as 1/2, 3/4 of an inch. I would, without pictures, it's really hard for us to know, send us a picture next time you can get that one. But don't worry about it at this point, what it is, just throw the lights on it, try to get it balanced.
Did you mention kidney?
That's the back leg, back foot, right.
2 to 5 minutes on the hooves, so if we're dealing with acupuncture points, do we do the same times as anywhere else on the body?
I always start with 30 seconds, 2 and 5. When I'm just scanning and treating, that's where I always start. No matter whether I think it's an acupuncture point or inflammation or tissue damage, start there and see if it clears.
Yeah.
Just don't make it, you're overthinking it. Don't make it too hard. Okay?
What else is there? Thanks.
No problem. And any other questions? Anything that's come up either from this or come up throughout the week? Karen, I know you're a massage therapist. Do you see that SI9 point come up very often for you? In the shoulder? Oops, come back up here. Nope. I think she was muted. Are you there, Karen? There she is. Oh, I can barely hear you. I hear something, but not.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yep, now I can.
Hello?
I can hear you. We can hear you,
Yeah,
Karen.
what was your question again? Okay.
Question
Which point were you talking about?
SI9 there in the shoulder.
Oh, yeah. And I find that on I have older horses, and yes, I find that especially with my own horses.
Yeah. For those of you who ever go and work out on machines and so on and find if you find just below your shoulders on your upper arm, you'll have that divot that really will start getting painful. That's SI9. So, yep. Yeah, something's going on with your system, Karen. I went ahead and muted you again. All right, well, I don't want to overload you guys with too many points or too much to try to learn. The takeaway from tonight is just to remember that intestines run up the legs, okay? That, that when you start working the legs and the shoulders, you can be affecting digestion, you can be affecting diarrhea, you can be affecting TMJ. All of those things can be very tied all the way down into the ankle. So, you're doing a lot for the horse, just working up those split grooves, working up the legs, working up behind the shoulders, stuff that may not have anything to do with the anatomical area that you're over. Okay? All right. And, Karen asked about whether any of these points affect string halt. Well, certainly I'd be looking at ligament issues. I'd be looking at the inability of the body to pick up and extend the front leg. And so specifically, gee, this point affects string halt. No, I don't have that. But if I had a horse with string halt, I would definitely be checking this meridian for balance. Both of them, if that makes sense. And Sandy, you asked if you would have access to the chart. No, not this one specifically. Every time I try to change presenter on this, I end up with a complete meltdown of the computer. I apologize. But in the class, you will definitely have charts, and you're going to get to do drawing on the horse, and you're going to get drawing on charts. So you're going to get lots of chance to draw. All right, guys. I'm sorry, go ahead.
You mentioned colored fine tip wet erase pens. Is there a brand? I mean, I've never seen. Do you get them at an art supply store?
No, I get them at pretty much anywhere. Anybody's. They're called, the best ones are made by Expo, and they're called Vis-a-Vis. They're what they use for doing the overhead projector stuff, and they come in 4 to 6 to 8 colors.
Vis-a-Vis.
Vis-a-Vis. They're made by Expo. You'll find them right over there in the dry erase marker set.
Gotcha.
But these are great because if you take your charts and you have them laminated, you can use dry erase pens on them over and over and over again. The advantage of the wet erase ones is they don't just wash off. Then the first time you go walk, you accidentally brush them with your arm or put them in a pile. But you can just go home, take a wet rag, and wash them right off. So I love my wet erase pens. Good question.
Thank you.
You're welcome. They're great for documenting, especially bright red, bright green. They're great for documenting what you found that day working on a horse. And I cannot stress too much how important it is to take pictures and track what's going on. You'll want it for testimonials. You'll want it for going back and reviewing what's going on. You'll want it for getting paid. So, really important. It took me only about 10, 12 years to figure that out for myself. All right, guys, I'm going to go feed the horses and then the husband. So thank you for being here. I appreciate you show up every week, and we will talk to you next week.
Thank you, Kate.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.